Greetings, YouTube subscribers and YouTube land. Welcome to the channel. She That Exists, Her Story channel. So, I wanted to jump on here real quick. In case this is your first time watching She That Exists, Her Story channel. I am Reverend Stone, and I come on here and I share as Creator Almighty calls me to come on and share and teach, for life is sacred. All right. So I'm earning my master's as an ordained minister, and as a PhD student, my PhD work, once I complete my master's, is in family pastoral counseling psychology. So I have been walking, I guess, publicly. I gave my life to God at 15 years old, and I've had a personal relationship with Yahushua HaMashiach, commonly known as Jesus Christ of Nazareth, since I was 12, and then gave my life to God publicly at 15 for everything that is good, for everything that is righteous, for everything that is holy and good and innocent about life at 15. So I wanted to jump on here and share this subject and this message for sacred education called What to Do When a Past Trauma Comes Up or a Past Wound. Specifically, something that came up from your childhood, a trauma that came up in your childhood, or wound that came up in your childhood or your teenage years, or in earlier times of your life when you were forced to suppress it. I don't want to bring up any specific examples, so I'll bring up just general examples. Let's say that you yourself personally, or anybody, let's say you were assaulted when you were a teenager, or let's say that you were abused as a child, or let's say that you were physically assaulted. Let's say that your parents went through a divorce when you were younger and you had to go through some things in the courts or in the family, or some mental and emotional and spiritual traumas that you didn't understand, or anything that in your life. Because when we go through things that happen in our life and we're not able to process it, for me personally, I went through something happened in my life, and my parents did not take me to counseling. Okay, my parents did not take me to a minister. My parents weren't equipped themselves to help me process it mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, and things that we've gone through. So a lot of times parents will force a child or a teenager to suppress things. And I have my mastery in consciousness. And so I know how the mind works, and the emotional realm and the conscious and the subconscious mind works. So when you go through a trauma, or when you go through something that is hurtful, or that you don't understand, or that you have a hard time processing, or something that happened, the way it works whenever you don't have someone, a minister or a counselor or a parent or a teacher or a friend or anybody to help you process it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, in the unseen realms. That's what metaphysics is, and a metaphysician is, and a metaphysical practitioner is. I'm a metaphysical practitioner. Is we help people heal and clear things in the mental realms, the emotional realms, and the spiritual realms, because things in the mental and the emotional and the spiritual realms will materialize and manifest into the physical realm, in your body or in life, and it'll show up as disease, or it'll show up in life in other ways. So what happens when you go through a trauma at a young age, or anything hurtful, or something that you don't understand, and it could be something as simple as your parents got divorced and you were put in the middle of it, and you had to go through, like fighting and fighting with your parents, and they used you, as basically like a pawn of war. But it could be anything. It could be bullying. It could be anything. So what happens when you just have to pretend like it didn't happen? In my case, in my situation, my parents just pretend it never happened. They just put it underneath the rug. It was never talked about again. They didn't help me process it mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. So the way that the mind works is you have to suppress it in the subconscious. So it gets stored away in a particular place in your mind and in your consciousness. And it just gets suppressed and stored away. It's just like, like this angel, like, if I didn't want to look at this anymore, I'd put it in a top shelf in the closet and I'd store it away so I never had to look at it or see it again. Okay, that's how it works when you have unprocessed trauma. So when you get older, okay, what happens is those unprocessed traumas will come up. Okay, so when those unprocessed traumas come up, that's usually when people have really intense feelings and emotions. You might start crying. Hi from India. Hi. Welcome. Come on in. Welcome. This is a safe place. So what happens is that previous trauma will come up, okay? And it will come up where you just have all these strong emotions. You might want to start crying. It might feel really intense. You might feel like you're reliving that moment. You're reliving that trauma. It may feel very, very real to you. And in my case, I was like 15 or 16 years old. So I went back to my 15 or 16-year-old self, and it felt very, very, very real. Like it was all happening again. That's how intense the feelings and the emotions of it all when those repressed traumas come back up. So I just wanted to jump on here really quickly because I do have a lot of work that I'm doing today. But I just truly felt in my heart and my spirit to be in obedience to God, to Creator, to life, and to come on here and share a metaphysical practitioner tip on what you can do or to help someone else who maybe things from their past and their past traumas are coming up. It does not help to tell someone, oh, that's from the past, get over it, or oh, that's in the past, move on. That the past is the past is dead. You can't bury these things that happen in the past and just say, oh, the past is over. It's dead. You can't bury it. So what I do and what has worked for me and what works for me almost immediately is if we try to suppress it again, say we went through a trauma as a young child with our parents because they divorced, and let's say all those feelings and those emotions and the trauma of all that and being put in the middle of their war, and say all that came up, it doesn't help to take all those emotions and to stuff them back down or to suppress it. Because a lot of times what people will suppress with drugs, they'll suppress with alcohol, they'll avoid, stay busy, 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 busy. They won't allow themselves to feel, they'll numb, they'll do anything they can to numb what is coming up. And, but what works for me and what works for me today, because I was talking to, another individual who is in like the spiritual healing arts or the ministry arts, who has dedicated their life to God and for goodness for a very, very long time. And let's see, the subject of bullying and the schools came up, and I started sharing my experience of being bullied in school. And can I counsel you? Yes, I can. I can. Yeah, definitely. What are we discussing? We're discussing mental, emotional, and spiritual traumas from the past, and things that might come up from the past, from your childhood or your teenage years, for when you get older. Okay, and I'm a metaphysical practitioner, and my PhD candidacy is in family pastoral counseling psychology. And so I'm also a minister. So what I do is I help people in the mental realms and the emotional realms and in the spiritual realm. And I'm sharing a really good tip right now to be able to help dissolve that, because a lot of people will say, oh, if that happened to you when you were 5, it's in the past. Or, oh, if that happened to you when you were 16, that's in the past. But it doesn't help to just say, oh, it's in the past. You know, it's dead. Just bury it in the past. That does not help clear these things permanently. And so, yes, I can offer you spiritual counseling privately. Just email. You have to reach out to me. So you can email SheThatExists at gmail.com, SheThatExists at gmail.com, and just put in the subject matter that, you know, like you saw my YouTube live, and that you're seeking counsel. So I do, or I have a number you could text, but I don't know if you're in India. Are you in India? Okay. I don't know. Oh no, that is eFootball who's in India. Yeah, as Sigmund Freud says, unexpressed emotions never die. They buried inside and come out later in uglier ways. Yes. Okay, so the way that they come up and out, okay, it's either going to happen in 2 different ways. Like when it comes up and out, people are going to resist it and suppress it. And a lot of times people will use like drugs and alcohol to cope. People will use like disassociation, to where you like disassociate from yourself. And that's not healthy because it's a temporary fix, but you're not connected to consciousness. I have a mastery in consciousness. So I have all this life's experience and then all my education to be able to help with this. So you don't want to disassociate, because then you're unconscious and you're disconnected from consciousness. And, you know, God and consciousness are the same thing, because you're connected to a creator when you're connected to consciousness, and you are your whole functioning self. So you don't want to disconnect. You don't want to disassociate. A lot of times when it's a really severe trauma, you know, say it's sexual abuse, or even a death of a family member, you know, at a very young age. Like if a child loses their mom or dad at a very young age, whether their mom or dad dies, or, you know, whether it is from divorce and their parents go to war, and so they lose one of their parents, that can cause fragmentation in the soul, and it can cause fragmentation in the psyche. And so then that child or that teenager or whatever you go through and you experience at that time, the way that creator like made us is like our soul will like fracture, but it's a form of protection just to survive, so we don't die, because people can die from heartbreak, people can die from trauma. And so the soul will fragmentize, and then what happens is people will disassociate, or if it's a really, really major pain that the child or the teenager can't process on their own, then the soul will fracture, and like people will get like multiple personalities. That's how they describe it in psychology. Okay. And with my metaphysical training and my mastering consciousness, my, I don't know, like 36 years that I've, you know, had a relationship with God, creator, life. When you study consciousness, you kind of realize that consciousness and God and creator and all that, it just becomes one. It's like the same, you know, your highest self, and just being connected to that. So that's a survival mode that creator gave us to be able to survive, because people can really die from heartbreak, and people can really die from trauma. These things are all very, 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 very real. And so with that being said, I want to finish the tip. And I do share every Sunday. I'm on here in the evenings, and I give a ministry message to help people with healing and restoration. And I'm very, very passionate right now. Creators just really aligning me to teach generational healing and family restoration, generationally, ancestrally, so we don't continue passing things down onto our children and our offspring and our lineage unconsciously. And so Sunday evenings, I come in and I share family restoration to my subscribers of the channel. And I just share as much complimentary and free education and sacred education and conscious education and wisdom as I'm able to. And then Wednesdays, I come on here live, and as an ordained minister, I teach parents how to intercede for the lives and the minds and the hearts and the spirit and the soul of their children and their offspring through the art of prayer, intercessory prayer. And then I don't know if Thursday evening or Friday lunches in the afternoons, I'm coming on here live, and I help connect people to their gifts and their talents, and I help with personal development and mental, emotional, and spiritual growth, and really help people fine-tune their gifts and their talents and their abilities to have a fulfilling life, you know, to have a good vocation, to have a good career. These are areas in my life where I felt like that I missed out on. I didn't have anybody in my life when I was in my teenage years or in my 20s, or, you know, really even in my 30s. I didn't feel like I had anyone to really like pour into me mentally and emotionally and spiritually and help me develop myself. I just always had God in my relationship with God, creator life. So then I also have a free Facebook group. It's called SheThatExists International Master Soul Coaching. So in that Facebook group, I come in and I offer Master Soul Coaching internationally. It doesn't matter what religion or faith or, you know, like your beliefs, none of that matters, because at the soul, you know, like that's who we are, living, breathing souls, you know, beneath the skin, beneath, you know, religion or denomination or gender or any of that. You know, God created us all as living, breathing souls. So I offer free coaching and masterminds in the International She That Exists International Master Soul Coaching Facebook group. So I show up, I give, and I give, and I give, and I give, and I give. So you can schedule a session with me. The description, I'll put the description to schedule a private one-on-one session with me in the description of this video. Subscribe to the channel, like the channel, share the videos. But I want to finish sharing a really important tip and something that works to help clear past traumas, because suppression doesn't help. Disassociation doesn't help. And for people who really want true healing and restoration on a soul level, I'll share exactly what I did, okay? Because literally I just did this for myself. I was sharing with a fellow minister, healer, helper, healer archetype about how bullying is a very serious thing in school. And I was sharing some bullying that I went through whenever I was in high school. And I was just sharing it, you know, to let them know, like, this bullying is a very serious thing. We have to stop bullying. We have to. And we have to protect innocent people, and we have to protect innocent lives. And I was sharing that probably like, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 days ago. And then today when I woke up, all of that trauma from that time in my life came up, and I was feeling it. And I was like, what is this? Like, what is going on? What is this? And I was like, okay, I got to go outside and take a walk. So I went outside and I took a walk, and I realized that the bullying that I went through at 15 and 16 years old was coming up simply from the conversation that I had talking to another friend of mine who's an elder who is like a helper healer archetype, and telling this individual, you know, how important it is that we end bullying in the schools and how bullying is a very, very serious thing. And then this morning when I got up, all of that came back from whenever I was 15 or 16 years old. I felt like I was my 15 or 16-year-old self again. And I knew that I had two choices. I could either allow it to come up, because when we stuff it back down, that's whenever we're disconnected from consciousness. That's when we're not whole on a soul level. That's whenever we disassociate or we distract. And when you suppress it and you push it back down, or, you cover it with drugs or alcohol or TV or sex or addiction, that's what a lot of people do to cope. That's where addiction comes in. And so I was like, okay, I got to just cry this out, because tears are very, very healing. They're very, very, very healing. The word says that God takes like all of our tears and holds them as sacred, and that our tears are very, very sacred, and that they're for healing and cleansing and purification and purging. So I went for a walk, and I went out to the field, and I just sat down and I cried it out. And as I was crying it out, I realized that I was crying out everything that my parents had forced me to suppress whenever I was 15 or 16 years old, because they didn't counsel me. They didn't parent me, because parents are called to ministry, because your children are your ministry. And so I was crying it out, and I look back at that time, because it was like I went back to my 15-year-old self again. And I went back to that time, and I realized my parents didn't protect me. The schools didn't protect me. Like teachers that I had, I was going to church at the time, so there was nobody even in the church that helped me. And so I cried it out, and I said, I can't let this affect me. What do I do? And I prayed, and I heard to just ask the light and the love of God. I say Yahushua because that's the closest to his true Hebrew name, the Redeemer, the Deliverer. Some people say Christ. Some people, he's commonly known as Jesus Christ of Nazareth. That's the name to the commoners, but if you look at scholars and people who have had a lot more education, his name is different, but he's commonly known as Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And as a Yahushuan metaphysical minister, I asked for the love of Yahushua to dissolve that, to dissolve the pain, to dissolve all that past trauma that was suppressed in my psyche and suppressed in my spirit. And so as it was coming up, I just asked for the light of Yahushua to dissolve it, and to dissolve it with Yahushua's love, and to dissolve it with Yahushua's light. If you say God, say, God is universal. If people, who like to say Jesus, say, Jesus. I just ask for God's Yahushua to dissolve all of that pain and all of that trauma, with God's light, because the light is the awareness. And when we suppress things, that's more like the darkness, because you're avoiding it, you're suppressing it, you're not looking at it. And the light is awareness. People always talk about love and light, but light is awareness. Okay. And when you're having to shove down past traumas as a child or as a teenager because your parents didn't help you, and your parents didn't support you, and your parents weren't there for you, and your parents failed you, ask for the love of God and the love of Yahushua to dissolve it. So that's what I did. Took all that pain, I took the trauma, I took the sadness of being 15 years old and my parents not supporting me, and my parents not protecting me, and my parents not helping me, and my parents not being there for me mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I gave it to God. And I asked for Yahushua's light to dissolve it, to dissolve just all of it, the trauma, the pain from not being protected, the pain from not being listening, the pain from not being heard, the pain from not being understood, from not getting, proper counsel or ministry or care or love or any of those things. I just asked for the love of Yahushua and the love of Creator to dissolve it. Beautiful eyes. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So I hope this helps, because even if you haven't experienced anything like that, a friend, like you have somebody in your life that has experienced a heartbreak or pain, suffering, bullying, when children's parents get divorced, that's something that they don't understand, like things happen when you're really, really young and you don't understand. And even as I've aged and even as I've gotten older, there are still a lot of things that I don't understand. And when I don't understand, instead of letting it get to me and hurt me and keep me stuck in my life or in my evolution or my spiritual path or my growth mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I turn it over to God. I turn it over to Yahushua, my kinsman redeemer, because Yahushua was life's work. Like, people always try to religiousize like the work of Yahushua, commonly known as Jesus Christ. Everybody turns it into a religion. It was never made to be a religion. It was his life's work. And I have my life's work as an ordained minister. I have my life's work as a metaphysical practitioner. And most people don't know what a metaphysical practitioner is, but we're practitioners of helping people heal things in the mental and the emotional and the spirit realm, the unseen realm. You can't see somebody's feelings. You can't see somebody's emotions. Like, somebody's not wearing past hurt or abuse or sadness or my parents' divorce. They're not like wearing it, on their face, unless people get a tattoo or something. But that's what a metaphysical practitioner is. And that's what I am. And I'm earning my master's right now. I complete my master's and I'll write my master's thesis. And then whenever I complete my PhD work in family pastoral counseling and psychology, then I'll become a doctor, a metaphysician of family pastoral counseling and psychology. So it's just the path that I'm on. And it's my vocation and it's my calling and my purpose. And that's how I help and I show up and I help others, whether it's through family healing, family restoration, whether it's individual healing and restoration, to help you know yourself, to master yourself. Because everybody's on the journey of self-discovery and self-mastery. And everything in life is an inside job, right? We have to go within or else we go without. So subscribe to the channel. Email me if you have any questions, because what I'm doing as a teacher and as an educator and as a metaphysical minister and the helper healer archetype with my life's work is I'm carrying forward the life's work of Yahushua HaMashiach, commonly known as Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and I'm carrying forth his life's work into my life's work, because he is my master teacher, my deliverer, my kinsman redeemer, and I'm teaching about his role with his life's work as our kinsman redeemer. Basically, he steps in for our bloodline and he redeems us as our kinsman. And that's a powerful role because he acts as our mediator, he acts as our attorney, he acts as our defender, he acts as our advocate and our lawyer, all the things. And I'm feeling called. I only release a word whenever I know that Creator Almighty has given me permission to release that word. I listen with the ear of my heart. Saint Benedict teaches to listen with the ear of your heart. And when you listen with the ear of your heart, you're to be obedient and to what Creator is telling you by listening with the ear of your heart. And so many people get stuck up here, you're always in your head trying to figure everything out. However, we're called to live in our heart, right? That's the secret, sacred, holy space, the Holy of Holies, in the depths of our heart and our being. And that's where we hear from Creator. That's why it's so important to keep your heart pure. That's why it's important to protect your heart. Everything I teach, I wish that my 15-year-old self, I would have known as my 15-year-old self. I wish that my parents would have taught me growing up. But my parents weren't teachers. My parents weren't ministers. They didn't want to know anything about spiritual things or healing or healing mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. But as parents, we're called to minister to our children, to our offspring. And we're called to learn about these things and study these things. And we're supposed to be able to have wisdom to pass on to the people younger than us as we get older and pass wisdom on to our offspring. We're not supposed to pass down trauma to our offspring and our children. And a lot of parents are passing down trauma. And we're not called for that. We're not called to pass on trauma. So I come on here and I share as if I would want somebody to share with me if I were 15 or 10 or 20 or 25, and I'm going into my 5th decade. So not yet, but I will be going into my 5th decade. So I come on here and I share how I would want somebody to share with me if I were 10 or 15 or 20 or 25 or 30 or 35. If I had who I am today, whenever I married my daughter, my offspring's dad, at 26, I probably wouldn't have had any issues in life, because I would be like, wow, I got all this wisdom. I mean, we can't control other people. I wouldn't have been able to control my daughter's dad. But if I knew everything that I know now, when I was 15 or 20 or 25 or 30, I probably would have been an unstoppable force, just unstoppable force to be reckoned with. So I come on here and I share, and I impart wisdom and I impart knowledge however I'm able. So, with that being said, I always encourage everybody, if you have any questions, to email me. Just email me with questions. Like I was watching you on SheThatExists HerStory channel, and I have these questions, because we can't learn if we're not asking questions, because that's how we learn. And there are a lot of people who don't let people ask questions. That's not like a true teacher or true educator or true minister or a true anything, because we learn through asking questions. That's how we develop ourselves. That's how we grow. That's how we evolve, is through asking questions. So what I'm doing is I'm creating spiritual guidebooks, and I'm creating guidebooks. I don't know, some people call it a workbook. I'm just going to call it a spiritual guidebook for everything that I come on here and share and teach and talk about in the Sunday evening ministry and the Wednesday evening ministry and the Thursday or the Friday. I'm not sure yet. I guess it just depends on whenever folks are available. If folks are available to attend live on Thursday evening or Friday afternoon. I don't know. It's y'all's channel. This channel is dedicated to you. I'm just a facilitator, and SheThatExists actually sponsors this. And then, so if you are called to be a sponsor, you can email me about sponsorships, because we are seeking sponsors. But right now, SheThatExists is our sponsor, and we're looking for more sponsors to continue to make these lives happen and to continue with the sacred education and imparting knowledge and imparting wisdom and mental, emotional, and spiritual healing, and to continue the work of Yahushua HaMashiach. And the wisdom that was passed down in his life's work, because it was never meant to be made a man-made religion. Like, that was never a part of the whole design. However, with that being said, you can give a seed to Cash App, $ SheThatExists, and then PayPal, SheThatExists@gmail.com. There are plenty of ways to give. And I always tell people that if you give in like a ministry or teachings or a channel or anything like that, to always claim the universal law of tenfold return. There's a universal law. Universal just means that they apply to everybody, and it applies to any situation. There's a universal law of tenfold return. And basically that means that when you give, like, to anything, you claim a tenfold return, so that when you sow that seed and you give to that offering, it's just like when you plant a seed in the earth and you water it and you nurture it, you're going to get a harvest out of it. And it's, farming. It's natural law. So you give, and then you claim the universal law of tenfold return on that. So you claim a tenfold return on what you give. So make sure, if you do give through Cash App and you do give through PayPal, that you claim the universal law of tenfold return, that what you give will be returned to you tenfold. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to come back to you financially tenfold. It means that it's going to come back in other ways that you need, whether it's like mental support, emotional support, knowledge, wisdom, insight, revelation. Somebody can gift you a bunch of food or give you a gift card, or kindness and love. I mean, even kindness and love, sometimes that's really rare these days, and a lot of people don't even have kindness and love to give. There's so many people who are craving emotional connection. There's so many people who are just craving, just connection, and to feel loved, to feel supported. And so there are plenty of ways that when you claim the law of tenfold return after giving to this channel and supporting these messages, that it can come back to you. So I highly encourage that when you give, to Cash App, $SheThatExists, or through PayPal at SheThatExists@gmail.com to claim the universal law of tenfold return. All right. So ask questions. Anything that comes up for you. Like, let's say you're listening and then something comes up for you that you have questions about. Always cover it with the light and love of God when things come up from the past. Never be afraid to cry. It's like the fastest way to purge anything. Crying is not a weakness. It's a true strength. Literally, I just cried some stuff out that came up from whenever I was 15 years old that was suppressed that I thought I had already healed and cleared. I thought, oh yeah, I healed and cleared and focused on that a long time ago, and came up. And it was wild. So yeah, I just cried it out. And I asked for the love and the light of Yahushua HaMashiach to be shine upon it and to dissolve it in Creator's love. Because we get stuck and we can't move on. And on the emotional and the spiritual realms, like it doesn't evolve and you can't grow. So we're here to evolve. We're here to grow in Creator Almighty's love. And what I'm sharing is so deep and profound as a solution, but yet it's also so simple, because other people will just say, it's in the past. It's in the past. Bury it. It's in the past. And, the past is dead. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I need to write down that quote that my parents raised me by passing I can't read the rest of that. Yeah, but we have to look at the way that our parents raised us as well. And if there are things that our parents raised us in an unconscious way, we have to clear all that. I was looking for the quote by Freud, but it looks like Human Being 41 deleted the quote by Freud. I guess I'll find it. But no, that's a really, really powerful quote by Freud. So with that being said, email your questions to SheThatExists@gmail.com. To schedule a private one-on-one session with me, email SheThatExists@gmail.com. And then there's also a number, if you're in the United States, that you could text. I'm on WhatsApp. Someone asked me if they could schedule an appointment with me through WhatsApp. So yeah, I could do that. And then I offer virtual coaching and virtual one-on-one sessions. Anything else? Oh, yeah. And so I'm going to be putting together and creating a spiritual guidebook. And those will be available for purchase to go deeper, because it's your journey, right? It's your spiritual path. It's your spiritual journey back to wholeness, back to consciousness, back to Creator, to come into oneness and union with Creator, and to honor your life as sacred. I'm just here as a guide, as a messenger, to share wisdom and to impart knowledge and to share what has worked for me and the principles and the tools that work for me. And I respect everybody's path. And like I said, I'm just here as a metaphysical practitioner, as a guide and as a messenger, and to share what works for me, what hasn't worked for me, tools of transformation that work for me. And the love and God is a very powerful, powerful, powerful gift to be able to cover all sorts of things and dissolve all sorts of things when we come up. And I teach people to give I gave a Sunday ministry message, give your family problems to Yahushua HaMashiach. Yahushua literally means the one who self-exists and delivers. And so I teach, instead of having to carry all that within yourself, to give it to Yahushua HaMashiach. And then Yahushua HaMashiach, as healer, deliverer, kinsman, redeemer, will work on our behalf to take care of things. And then we could continue to grow in our and to continue to move forward in our life and to not get stuck. So with that being said, I don't see any questions. I don't see any more questions in the comments. So if you have any questions that you want to email privately, go ahead. And then if you want to book a private one-on-one coaching session or metaphysical practitioner session, we could do that. And then if not, I'll just take those questions and then I'll put them in the workbook that I'm creating for everybody and for the subscribers of the channel and for those who feel called to this ministry message. And yeah, and if you feel called to be a sponsor or to give, we are looking for sponsors to keep this going, because it takes a lot. It takes, what people don't realize is it really takes a lot to keep these channels going, especially in ministry. Because even though I come on here and I share freely, like when I share my Sunday messages, I start working on those messages on Friday. And whenever I come on and I share the Wednesday messages, I start working on the Wednesday messages on Monday morning. You know, and then, you know, we have an everyday life where, you know, we have to take care of things ourselves and, you know, pay bills and all the stuff and all the stuff and all the stuff, you know, because we're like regular, normal people too. We're just surrendered to our highest calling and are called to serve. My oath is to, as a minister, my oath is to God/life. And then I also am a metaphysical practitioner, so I offer those sessions too. So it's two-pronged, ministry and metaphysical practitioner, which is, in my opinion, better than a counselor. And a psychologist, they don't honor the spiritual aspect of us, right? You know, like a psychologist will never honor the spiritual aspect of life. So, and as a metaphysical practitioner, we honor the spiritual aspect of life, plus consciousness, plus the psychology side of everything. And we're trained in consciousness, we're trained in the spiritual aspects of life, and we're trained from a psychology perspective as well. So, in my opinion, we're better than psychologists. That's just my humble opinion, but I have a lot of training, and my mastering consciousness really helped. As well as my bachelor's in the metaphysical sciences and my life path experiences, and my 38, 39 years in my relationship and my dedication to God and creator and life and all that is sacred and good and righteous and holy and pure and honorable and true. And my character is tried and true, and I've been through a lot of experiences in life to test that, because life, you go through experiences in life to test your character. That's inevitable. So also give me feedback, you know, if you want me to go live on Thursday evening or Friday lunches, to help with coaching for personal development and to help people in your gifts and talents and your abilities, to help you with your vocation. Because I didn't have that either. If I would have had a coach or a minister or anybody who invested in me to help me hone my gifts and talents and my God-given, natural-given, creator-given abilities, I probably would already be a multimillionaire by now. So yeah, anyway, I'm offering that too, either on Thursday evening or Fridays. And then you can join the free Facebook group. It's a public group right now and it's free for now, but it's called She That Exists International Master Soul Coaching Group. So with that being said, I'll be back, and there's so much content on this channel for free that I've been sharing, to help people find their voice and to help educate people and to impart wisdom and knowledge and awareness. From 2016, 2017, I started this channel. So go back to all the lives. Most of the messages are lives, but you can look at the videos. But anyway, and just watch, and if you have any questions or things that come up in your soul and your psyche or for your own personal life path and you have questions, just write down the questions that you have and send it to SheThatExists@gmail.com, and I'll answer the questions, or I'll make a workbook or a journal guide about it, because I'm here to help others in your spiritual growth and your spiritual development and your wholeness, to connect to consciousness, for your mental, emotional, spiritual evolution, and to come back as a whole soul and to continue to grow, whether it's healing or activating consciousness or expanding your consciousness and awareness, and, you know, all the ways of self-development and self-mastery. So with that being said, I am Reverend Stone, Reverend Carrie Stone, and I am facilitating these messages for She That Exists, and She That Exists is a current sponsor for She That Exists HerStory channel on the YouTube. And I thank YouTube so much for this platform, because we would not have been able to reach people all over the world And to be able to reach true souls all over the world, that's a gift, and it's a blessing, and it's amazing, and something to cherish for sure. So until next time, I'll be back. Go deep. It's your journey. Honor your